It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
This is the Cosmic Voice. Cosmic Voice, music, talk, and nothing but business with your hosts, Chris Nanolini and Mick Michaels. Hello everyone and welcome to the Cosmic Voice. This is Season 4, Episode 1. I am here with my co-host, Chris Nanolini.
Hello, everybody!
And I am Mick Michaels. Welcome, everyone, back to Season 4, the beginning of yet another barrage of Make It Up on the Spot podcasting. Chris, how are you, sir?
It's 2022, baby. I'm feeling good. It's a new year. Unfortunately, the entertainment world has taken a little bit of a hit, but we are here. We are here, and I'm excited. It's Season 4. I missed you. You know, we haven't done the show in a little bit. We took a little bit of a break for the holiday and got ourselves together. We got some new stuff on the horizon, new subjects, so it's going to be cool. I'm looking forward to this season.
Yeah, I am too. We got some cool stuff coming this season, and the past couple weeks we've been kind of going back and forth through Messenger as to what we're going to talk about, but I am excited about it. Season 4, I just can't believe that we're there. You know what I mean? It's in some regards, you know, the last couple years they've kind of meshed together. So I get like 2021, 2020 kind of, and here we are in 2022. To some degree, it feels like we just started the show, and on other levels, it feels like, hey, we've been at this a long time. And, you know, it's kind of like somewhere in between, but it really is cool. I'm pretty excited about it. And over the course of, since we ended Season 3 to season, you know, to starting up now, we've been able to expand the brand a little bit where you can find us in a couple different places. You know, we now have a YouTube channel, the Cosmic Verse, which is kind of exciting, and we have stuff. Super cool. Yeah, we have stuff on Facebook now. I think our podcast can be right off our Facebook page along with our website. It's just amazing what we've done when I think about how hard it was to get it started for us. But it's amazing what can be done with the technology that they have available to people.
Yes.
That's what I think is just kind of mind-boggling. And being someone who's, even though I use tech, I'm still not tech savvy, or as tech savvy as I should be, because I still feel like I'm behind the 8 ball most of the time. I'm getting caught up. Like, I'm caught up maybe 15 years ago. I'm still, you know what I'm saying? But
are you working on CDOS?
Yeah, you know what I mean? Doot, doot. You know what I mean? I just pulled out the dot matrix printer and I got to tear off the ends and stuff. It's crazy. It's just so amazing that people are listening, and we get a lot of comments, a lot of positive stuff. I mean, once in a while you get something kind of goofy, but I just kind of not even pay attention to them. You're going to get people to do that, but I just go with the positive stuff, and I keep going that way. So it's pretty cool, man. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, man, it's super cool. And, you know, we talked about, I think, you know, at the end of Season 3, we talked about we made, you know, a couple people's top 5 podcasts for the year, which is super, super cool. I was so psyched to see that. That is
pretty cool. That is pretty cool.
Yeah,
so somebody's listening, and that's great. And we appreciate all the support. And thank you. So did you do anything during the break? I mean, we had about, I don't know, 6-7 weeks since we've went off the air.
The band's back to kind of playing on a regular basis. You know, we're playing, I have some shows booked for the, you know, up to almost the summer. I mean, nothing crazy, one here, one there, but gigs are coming in on a regular basis. And no, I mean, not really, bro. Just, you know, it's with the weather, and obviously, you know, it snowed here. We're just coming out of a bad storm, and no, man, nothing really crazy, bro. You know, trying to think.
I mean, you enjoyed the holidays. You took some time, and
I did, yes, yeah. Holidays were awesome, and you know, as they always are. A little different this year because so many people were sick. So, you know, the Christmas holiday was kind of spread out over a few weeks.
Yeah.
Because, some people were sick, so we couldn't see certain people, certain family members. So we had to make other arrangements to see them in another weekend. And obviously we rang in the new year, which was very cool. And, it's always good new year. Kind of, you try to get you just come up with a new plan, right? It's new year. I mean, it sounds kind of cliche, but you do. You kind of go, all right, we're going into a new year. Hopefully things will be a little bit better. You pray for, a better year and, good things, good health, good prosperity, that kind of thing. Yeah. So, man, just holidays were great. How about you? Because you're big, Christmas.
The holidays were great. They absolutely were. They're just never long enough. It's just amazing the time I get to spend with my family. That's for me, a personal thing. But and I'm always kind of bummed out about how. You spend all this time getting riled up for it and looking forward to it, and and then you're in it, and then before you know it, it's over, and then you're sitting there, like when you're starting to put the decorations away, and it's like, wait a minute, where? It's kind of like how 2020 and 2021 bled into each other. But yeah, there was a lot of people sick over the holiday, and I mean that, again, that's the law of the way things kind of happen, right? I mean, last year everybody was in super isolation. The 6 months prior to Christmas, a lot of the floodgates had opened and people just said, hey, I'm getting out there, I'm going to do something. So as immune systems were down, in my opinion, regardless of what you want to look at it, was it COVID, was it a cold, was the flu, was it this, that, and the other thing? It's just that, hey, listen, people are going to get sick because we're interacting again.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Again, if this was 5 years ago, no one would have thought anything. It's like, you're sick. Okay, well, just stay in the corner. Make sure you don't sneeze on the, on the cookie tray. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
That kind of thing now.
Yeah.
Now, sickness is looked at as a completely different thing, and, people are kind of shut out. And I know there was a lot of families, even this year, separated because of the division between being vaccinated, not vaccinated, wearing a mask, not wearing a mask. That type of thing. If you just got the sniffles, we don't want you around. If you're coughing, we don't want you around. So there's a lot of things, and that's that new norm we had talked about last season. That it's new frontier for all of us, right? Even in the music industry, things were kind of like ripping there during the summer, but then there started to be some pullback as the year started to close, in 2021. So we'll see what 2022 holds, and I guess we'll talk about it as this season unfolds as well. But
well, I hope so, because I got a lot of concert tickets coming up. So
I hear you.
Things better be back to normal, because all these shows are coming back. So I'm buying a lot of concert tickets.
Yeah, there's a lot of. I had noticed there's a lot of reschedules and stuff. Now places are, now that there's a rescheduled date, a lot of venues are offering ticket refunds if you can't make it, but they're only giving you 30 days to get your ticket refund. So that means if you don't collect it, they get to keep that money. And you know how that goes. People forget. Hey, did I buy tickets for that? I'm not even sure. That kind of thing. And I'm sure, probably getting that refund's not as easy as you think. And yet, that, what I mean? Oh, the app's down that day, and then tomorrow it runs out, and there you go. So somebody just made a chunk of change on that interest for the last year and a half. So I don't know.
So true, man. So true. And, so hopefully, and too, the thing like with everybody getting sick is, no matter what you believe or how you feel about the whole thing, the one thing was like, oh my God, if you had COVID, you didn't want it to give it to somebody, and then have them carry it to somebody else. And God forbid that person, has a rougher time with it. And, you never want to be the cause of someone to have, in the hospital.
Right.
You never want to be that person, so, especially with, you and I, like, our moms are, they're older people now. And, so you can kind of think about them as the family's getting together. And, that was always a thing. And, you just have, it is unfortunate that we're in this situation, but hopefully 2022 will be a better year, and shows will be coming back, which they are. Hopefully they'll happen. And, we'll kind of get back to some kind of normalcy. We hope, anyway.
I hope so, or it's going to just be a bunch of boy in the plastic bubble routines for everybody. we're talking through these thick plates of glass. I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
This is Stephen Pearson from Rat, the Rat Bastard. You're listening to the Cosmic Voice.
All right, so Season 4, Episode 1. What we're going to do is we're going to kick off discussing the Spotify situation that's been... Now, when this airs, it'll probably be about 3 weeks already into it, but in the early parts of February, the Spotify situation with Joe Rogan and all has really exploded in terms of artists pulling their catalogs from Spotify, kind of the dividing line because they have issue with Spotify having podcasts on. Specifically, Joe Rogan is being targeted at this point, and they're spreading misinformation. And there's a lot to that on both sides. So I'm going to have Chris go into it a little bit more in detail, and then we're going to break some of the things down and see how that affects other artists and the fans as well.
Yes. First of all, before we even start, I want to just make sure, I want to put this little statement out there that Mick and I are not, this isn't about our political views. This isn't about our personal views. This is more about the business end of it itself, right? Like Joe Rogan, his podcast is a business, whether you like it or not. They pay him $20 million a year, and he has 11 million people listening to his podcast. He does his podcast, I think, 3 times a week. So Mick and I are looking at it from a business. This does not, we're not pushing any kind of narrative. This is just what we think on the business side of it. Now, Joe Rogan, he self-admittedly is, to him, it's just a podcast that he started just, goofing off with his friends, and it turned into this mega monster that like I'd said, he gets 11 million listeners, and that's pretty incredible. He's one of the number one podcasts in the country, maybe even the world, that I'm not sure, but I know he's number one, the most listened to podcast, which is crazy. And the one thing I like about Rogan, I do listen to his show. I don't listen to all the shows. I only listen to it when I'm interested in the person he has on. His shows are usually about 3 hours, for those of you who may not be familiar with it. And he has all kinds of different people on. Obviously, from being from the UFC, he has a lot of fighters on, a lot of people from that MMA background. He also has other comedians on because he still tours and does stand-up to this day. He has musicians on. He's had Steven Tyler on, David Lee Roth, and he has people in the medical field because I don't necessarily know if he's done political. I guess he's done more than medical, more people from the service, people with a story. He likes people with stories. He will talk to anybody. I know he's had Ben Shapiro on the show, and for the, I don't know if people know who Ben Shapiro is, but he is one of the heads of the Daily Wire, and him and Joe don't agree politically, but Ben was on the show, and it was a great show. Joe is good at having conversation, and he lets people speak their mind. He doesn't make people feel stupid. He asks questions, in my opinion, anyway. I don't see him spreading any misinformation. What he does is he puts people on his show that have information. They have stories. He puts people on that have credentials. He's not just pulling a guy like me or Mick off the street to talk about, medical things where we're just shooting off our mouth. He has people that know what they're talking about. Now, whether it's their point of view, that's a whole different story, right? Like, if you're going to have people on your show, you're getting their side of the story, whether it be right or wrong. So I don't see it as misinformation. I see it as someone giving information, and that is up to the person if you believe that person or not. Listen, at the end of the day, man, it is free speech, right? This country gives you and I, Mick, the opportunity to sit here on Zoom and spew off at the mouth for an hour about the business and the music business and what our opinions are. There are opinions. And I think the thing that really bothers me the most is if you don't like it, don't listen. And really, what is misinformation? You could turn on your local news and see information, and you could turn on the national news and see different information. You're going to get information from everywhere. It could all be wrong. It could all be right. Now, with COVID, which is where this whole thing comes from, because I think it stemmed from, he had and unfortunately, I don't know the gentleman's name. He was a doctor. That's where this whole thing started from. And it was, he was a doctor in viruses. I think he has more patents on like viral medications or something to that effect. So I may be talking out of terms, but that's kind of where this whole argument stems from. And this doctor had opinions on the virus and where it started from and why he got banned off of Twitter. And he gave his side of the story. And, Joe Rogan put out a video the other day. Like Mick said, this is, when this airs, we'll be in the we're recording in the beginning of February, but when it airs, it'll be a little in the middle of February. But Joe Rogan put out a video the other day. It was 10 minutes explaining that he felt like he should be doing better. And what he claims to say is, if I have someone on my show that says this, then maybe the next day or so, or the next podcast, I should have someone on the show that kind of, refutes that statement. So you kind of get both ends of the spectrum. Is he right? I don't know. Who's to say? I mean, again, if you don't like it, don't listen. If you don't like the information, then you don't like the information. It is what it is. There's a lot of things in this world I don't like. There's nothing I can do about it. It is what it is. So just don't listen, right? Like that was Howard Stern. You and I are Stern guys from the very beginning. And what was his thing? He always said, if you don't like me, don't listen. It's literally the switch of a button. And it's not like Rogan is on everything. You literally have to go to Spotify, get a subscription, type in Joe Rogan podcast, find the episode, hit play. So it's not like you're literally falling across and wandering through the internet. The only thing you may see on the internet are clips of him on YouTube. And even then, I'm sure once our show airs, he may or may not be on YouTube anymore. It depends on how this fight goes. Mr. Rogan took the high road. He put out a 10-minute video. He's making a lot of money for Spotify, and Spotify is paying him a lot of money. And they came out and said that they're going to do their best to put little disclaimers on the front of, descriptions of podcasts, which, listen, back in our day when the PMRC were trying to run all these records out of town, what did they do? They ended up putting a label on it, and they got more sold. You want to put a label on my podcast? Please do, because that'll just guarantee more people will listen. I think the thing that bothers me the most is that, all these artists, and as of today, 2 more artists have come out. One of them is India Ari, and then there was another one that I don't currently have in front of me. When we're recording this, 2 other artists came out. You got Neil Lofgren, you got Joni Mitchell, and Neil Young is the one that started off. Now, first of all, a lot of these people were waving the free speech banner back in the day. Rocking in the free world, right? Like that. I mean, that's what it is. And you're giving Spotify an ultimatum: take my music off or take Joe Rogan off. Now, listen, Mr. Young, they paid Joe Rogan $20 million a year. How much are you making off Spotify? That was dumb.
Well, they have 60% of his audience-based listening streams. According to what I read today, he even said it was 60%, which that means his label took a major hit from that decision.
Okay, well then there you go.
60% for, listen, no, and no disrespect, but for a had his day artist.
Yes.
And that's, to me, is a huge chunk.
Yeah, agree. I mean, it is what it is. If that's the fact, then that's a fact. But he also came out and said, well, listen, here's the thing, like Spotify sound quality isn't as great as, say, Amazon Music or Google or YouTube or, any other streaming service. So I think I read Spotify's listening quality is 5% lower or different than the original quality. Something, I may have that mixed up, but there was like some kind of percentage that the quality of the music that you listen to on Spotify.
Most streaming services are. That's why that new thing that Ozzy's releasing on that NTN something, I don't know, where it's these high quality wave files that can be downloaded, which is supposed to be just like the masters. So, of course, there has been a denigration of the quality of music, especially since the rise of the streaming service, back in the iTunes days.
Yes.
To get more on, you have to kind of give something up, and that's where that is.
Yeah. And here's my thing, man, like, where are these artists? Because now all these artists are coming out. First of all, you and I have spoken on probably the first season about all these old artists, curmudgeons, should just keep their mouth shut and just play music and stop getting your nose involved in everything. But they are. But these artists, where are these artists when guys like Steven Tyler from Aerosmith are getting pennies, a check of a couple bucks for people streaming Dream On? That's your battle. You're going to battle Joe Rogan podcast because you feel that the information is being put out there does not match how you feel. But yet you're okay with Spotify ripping off artists. And I'm not talking out of line. This is something that has been proven over and over and over. Spotify does not treat their artists correctly. So you're going to throw the censorship banner up there. You're going to wave that flag for what you claim is misinformation, whether it is or it isn't. But you're not going to wave that flag for artists that are being ripped off on a daily basis. I don't understand it. I don't. I don't. Censorship is amazing to me, and these are the people that were the front runners in the 60s, rocking in the free world, right? I mean, you know, it's been memes for the past 2 weeks, like, you know, Neil Young, a rocking in the free world, and you're giving Spotify Spotify an ultimatum. Now, look at it from another way. Is this their way to get off that platform? Well, I mean, that argument could be had. I posted on Facebook in I don't know, it was Entertainment Weekly. I don't remember the exact, it was a legitimate news source. And me and a couple people in the group were going back and forth. And somebody had said, well, you know, maybe these artists have been wanting to get off Spotify and this was their out. Now, they probably, you know, guys like Niels Lofgren and Neil Young probably could have, you know, pulled their stuff because of their names themselves, but I don't know, maybe they didn't want to, or maybe they couldn't, and now here is the perfect time. I don't know. That's not for me to say. All I know is that you're just censoring things, and you know, that's one thing we shouldn't be doing, is censoring people. Just don't listen. If you don't like it, don't listen. You know, I'm sure there's people that aren't interested in our podcast, and so they don't listen. Well, okay,
there's a lot of them apparently that don't listen.
But there are people that do. There are people who do enjoy our podcast. I mean, you know, the podcast is doing very well. We're aired on, like you had said earlier, we're aired on a lot of stations, so people are listening. But if you don't like it, then don't listen. It's as simple as that. And I don't understand all these people. And I'm sure by the time this airs, like you said, there's going to be more. And it's crazy to me that these people are coming out and going, "Oh, I'm pulling my music off Spotify because of Joe Rogan's podcast." Like, I am sure. And listen, I listen to a ton of podcasts. I can tell you for a fact, there are a lot worse podcasts that are putting out worse information than Joe Rogan and the guests he has on. I mean, it's ridiculous to me.
You are listening to The Cosmic Voice with your hosts, Chris Natalini and Mick Michaels.
So here's the thing, right? It's that and then some more, and a lot more. You're getting these artists, you know, Neil Young, he's leading the charge, okay? He wants to pull his music, or he did pull his music. He gave them an ultimatum, all right? Spotify said, okay, Neil, bye-bye. Why did Spotify do that? Well, the New York Times reports that they paid Joe Rogan already $100 million for the exclusive rights to his podcast. So they didn't necessarily pay that out to Neil Young. Now, I don't think that they did. I may be making that up, but I don't think that they paid $100 million for Mr. Young's use of his catalog. And he even said not everything that he has is on Spotify.
Right.
But, so they paid for that. They wanted him exclusively as part of their package, and that draws people in. So, of course, they were going to side with what they paid for. I understand that. It's business, 100%. And as you had mentioned, Neil Young hasn't complained once about the terrible payouts for the artists.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of split in terms of how artists are siding or not siding with that take of Neil Young's take, right? You have guys like Sebastian Bach saying, all you rockers out there, you should be siding with your own kind, Neil Young, and understand where he's coming from. Well, okay, maybe. Then you have some younger artists, you know, more modern type artists, and saying, like, you know, basically saying, look, man, you're kind of passe, and, you know, whatever the case may be. And that's because Joe Rogan at the same time is the new model, in a sense, of today, the modern stuff. And he's in vogue, right? Especially for podcasts. Yes, he has the most successful podcast. And that's, what's wrong with that? And that's usually the people who are targeted, right? The most successful people. And as we talked about before, whatever happens, both Neil Young and Joe Rogan will be okay. They'll both weather the storm. The problem area that I see is all the little people underneath with podcasts and trying to get their music out there, or they got their little shows, or whatever the case may be, because it is always a trickle-down effect. Listen, rock may be dead according to Gene Simmons, but it ain't hurting his pocket, right? His catalog still sells. Neil Young's catalog will still continue to sell. It may be 50 years old, but it still continues to sell. However, my band's catalog doesn't. So I can't,
Right.
I'm not living off of that kind of stuff. And whatever happens at the end of this, the fallout, the aftermath, will affect them a little bit. Actually, you know what? Neil Young will probably decide at some point during all this, before this is all over, he'll sell his catalog like Motley Crue did, like Def Leppard just sold off another portion of their catalog, because they're going to make more money from that immediate sale than they will over the next 20 years of streaming. Plus, it also increases their numbers. Their social
Bruce
awareness goes up.
Bruce Springsteen
Right.
just sold all his.
Right, exactly. And
Or I guess his earlier stuff.
and they've been going back and forth. You know, I know Gene Simmons has been quoted saying, "Well, how much money do they have? Do they have? Yeah, I know he loves to talk that we sell out every night type of things. I get it. You know, you got to have a soundbite. But sooner or later, when they decide to retire, there's a possibility they may do it. This may be the new norm for artists who are already established and making money on their catalog anyway, to have one solid payday, because within the next 25 years, a lot of them aren't going to be here. Let's make it the next 15 to 25 years. A lot of those guys aren't going to be here. So you want to set up even further your financial legacy? Well, that's the way to do it. And I get it. That's fantastic business. Why not? You're going to be dead. Who cares? Once you're dead. My grandmother used to say, when you're dead, you're dead. There's no, the stressing stops. You can't worry about it at that point. So I get it. But my concern is, how does that trickle down to the regular guy? Because now Joe Rogan, though Spotify isn't getting rid of him, they're going to put a little disclaimer. And that's just to appease the people that have a problem with free speech. Okay?
Correct. Yep. Just like they did back in the day.
Sure, until it becomes the norm. And then it becomes so much the norm that no one even sees it anymore.
Right.
Oh, yeah, isn't that part of the artwork? Like, the generation today going, isn't that a parental advisory thing? Isn't that part of the artwork? That artist gets a lot of money. You know what I mean? In our day, it was like, oh man, it's blocking a cool piece of the album or whatever. Now it's just a normal thing. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
If you don't see it, something's wrong, right?
Right.
You know, in your major acts, in your major releases, your things like that. So, you know,
when you don't see that explicit content, you look for the record that has it.
right, you're right.
You're like,
exactly.
I don't want the censored version. I want the uncensored version.
So you're having artists jump up because now, since the pandemic, you know, since Trump was in office, and again, like Chris said early on, this isn't political. I don't care one way or the other, because at the end of the day, neither Neil Young or Joe Rogan is paying any of my bills, so it doesn't make a difference. But as an artist, I'm looking at it in a different fashion. But since all this stuff happened in the world, everybody has a soapbox now. And misinformation here, misinformation there. Honestly, in my opinion, and I get it, like, if we're an intelligent race, an intelligent group of people, if we're getting our news strictly from Facebook, then the problem is ours. If we're getting our news and education strictly through Joe Rogan or Neil Young or anybody else singly, we have the problem. Then we're not doing our job correctly, right? Unfortunately, over the past 25, 30 years, the money that's been put into education has been taken out. This is why No Child Left Behind routine, they lowered the standards. Right? So disinformation, misinformation, whatever you want to call it, that's been the thing of the world since the beginning of time. If you want people to feel, do I think that Joe Rogan is going out intentionally trying to give misinformation? No. You know, his statement the other day, listen, it's just some people having a conversation. He said, sometimes I don't even know where the conversation is going to go. And that's that makes sense, because that's why people feel drawn to him, because it's just like, in this case, say, two guys talking.
And that's what it is. Like that's what makes that podcast interesting. You literally feel like you're just sitting at a table with a bunch of guys just talking, just hanging out, talking about experiences and listening to what that other person has to say, because that person has experiences and that person is educated and he has degrees and he's been in the thick of it, and they're the stories you want to hear, and that's all it is. It's just someone giving their own opinion.
Yeah, and you take it with it's just like any other interview, like if you watch The View or Good Morning America or whatever the case may be, that you're just taking at that moment what that person says, and then you let it go. And you know, if you need that type of information, that kind of education, it's up to the individual to go find it, you know, the discernment of it. Do your due diligence, as they say. So my point here is, I have several points, but you have these artists that are stacking up for and against, right? You got Neil Young, you got Joni Mitchell, you got Graham Nash just as of today. You know, they're all taking their music down, right? They're all taking their music. I just seen a post that Steel Panther's taking one of their singles down. Now, I think that's a good promotional thing. You want to join in, pull a song down, put it up on your website, you know, have some fun with it. Because what these artists should be doing is gathering together and saying, as a group, everybody's been complaining about it for the past 5 years, that artists aren't making enough money from it, right? They're being paid, right? But look at all the artists. These are artists that made millions back when millions could be made.
Yeah.
So having Neil Young, Graham Nash, Joni Mitchell, having their music available like that is only a plus for them, because the new society isn't going out and buying their stuff. No offense to them. They're fantastic musicians. I get it. I'd be honored to be able to just even sit next to them and have them pay for my meal. You know what I mean?
Right.
My point is that it's only a plus. This puts Neil Young into the spotlight because there's 20% of the population going, who the hell is Neil Young? Then there's a percentage of the population asking, he's still alive?
You're right.
You know what I mean?
This is the most relevant he's been in probably 30, 40 years.
Yeah, since he released Rockin' in the Free World back in the 80s.
Exactly.
So, and I get it. But here's the thing. This is the thing. This is not about Joe Rogan's show, Neil Young's catalog, or anything in between. It is about censorship.
Yes,
that's the huge thing. And that's
Agree.
where it's going to come down to the little guy. How is it going to trickle down and then affect how independent indie in the trench artists can get their music out there? How about the artists or the creators that want to create a YouTube channel, that want to create their own podcast, whether it's video, whether it's audio, they want to start their own internet radio station? How does that start affecting stuff? It's a streaming service. So if he wanted to just use the F word as his own speech, he should be able to do that. Because like you said, it's not that you click on the TV and he's there on every channel. It's not like you're seeing him in the airwaves. You actually have to physically do something to get him to pop up and hear it in your ears. So it's a matter of choice. First of all, Neil Young must have been a fan. How else would he have known? Joe Rogan. He's got good guests on. He's got interesting guests on. Sometimes I think he's confrontational. Other times I don't. Other times I think he's biting his tongue. And other times I think maybe he comes off too brazen. But again, that's what a good host is supposed to do. You're not going to like everybody. You know, Howard Stern always said his biggest listening audience were all the people that didn't like him.
100%. Yep.
You know 100%. What I mean? So whether I like him or don't like him has nothing to do with should he be taken off, should he be censored. No. Censorship, a lot of people don't understand, is censorship actually in this free speech thing that we have in our Constitution actually revolves around the federal government and what they can and can't do to us as a people. However, a private company, they can have their own standards. They can impose them or they can forget about them. If you're a non-traded company, you can do anything you want. If you're a mom and pop store, you can do anything you want to do as long as it doesn't harm other people. Now, there's loopholes and all that kind of stuff. That's why, there's affirmative action, and you have to hire so many people of this and so many people of this and so on and so forth. That's not my rules, and I'm not saying anything out of school here. This is the way the system is developed so that there is some equality. Okay, but if you're a company and you paid $100 million to have a talent on there, Well, you treat that talent the way you want. So they, instead of getting rid of him, they just put up a disclaimer. And you can look at that any way you want. Again, it's a decision that people have to make. You do your own diligence. And like you said, you either listen or you don't.
What it comes down to, right? Like Stern, we keep going back to Stern because he was one of the, back when we were younger, he was one of the biggest guys to fly that censorship flag. And that's one thing you always just say, you don't like it? Hit a button. It's literally just a touch of a button.
Yeah, I mean, Joe Rogan's, he's not a new name on the scene. He's been around a number of years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So
yeah. His podcast has been around for a number of years.
I think that I don't know the actual numbers, but statistically, CNN, Fox, and whatever else, these other news stations, their viewership is starting to decrease. And podcasting and certain sections, they're starting to increase. More of the younger generation, 40 and under, they're streaming service people. We've talked about it just in the music itself because it's convenient. It's easy.
Yes.
Right? It's part of their generation, their know-how, right? It's part of what they do. Where you and me, listen, still, like I was telling you before we went on air, I still struggle with some apps. Like, I mean, it's like, I know I got to hit play. If they don't got gigantic arrows this way, that way, you know what I mean? The big square, stop, you know what I mean? The pause. I'm a little lost at times, you know what I mean? I think that the fight is going the wrong way. That's what I think. I think it should be about other things. Yes, listen, we want as accurate information as we possibly can out there. However, this is an independent show that's been put on a streaming service that you have to pay for. So, I don't know. I mean, I guess you could say that about, like, CNN and Fox and I don't know what other else is there. But they're usually on cable systems or satellite systems that you're paying for. I guess it's the same thing. I'm not exactly sure. But who's to say that your local news isn't doing the same thing? I guess they are. I mean, they've proven that sometimes there is a bias to something.
Yeah, for sure. And it's only gotten worse as the years went on. I mean, as far as I know, you know what I mean? I guess maybe I'm just more aware of it now. But that's the thing, right? Like, you don't really know. It's up to the person, the individual, to find that information that you're looking for. And it's up to you to believe what you need to believe for you. Because, you always say, you always hear that old saying, there's only two people that know. You and God, and that's it. Like,
right.
I mean, you don't know. You just have to find something that works for you, and it could be wrong, and it could be right. Information changes every day. That's what Rogan said in his, in his apology video.
Listen, in the 70s, eating raw eggs was the okay to, they get packed protein, so on and so forth. By the 80s, they gave you high cholesterol. We're killing people. Don't do it. Get rid of the yolk, which is the best part of the egg. And then everybody went on this white thing. And in the last 10 years, it's like the egg is, if you could do 2 eggs a day, your body just responds so it changes all the time, like you're saying. So you cannot, all your eggs in one basket, so to say. I mean, it's just craziness.
It's what we knew, and obviously that information has changed through the years. Now, it just was while we were sitting here talking, bro. I just had, because it was interesting you said that. Excuse me for my lack of knowledge, because I don't really follow this kind of stuff. But Spotify is a publicly traded company, so
okay.
So they're not privately owned, right?
Okay.
They have investors. Is that right?
Okay, yep, if that's what it says. I did not...
Okay, all right. So, it is a privately traded company. Revenue for the year of 2021, they made $9 billion. Billion with a B.
Billion with a B.
Billion with a B. So, okay, so then they, Spotify does have to answer
they have to answer
investors, right?
Well, they have to answer to their stockholders, yes. And
right.
But they also have to then justify, I mean, what are they going to do? Fire him and say, well, how do we justify $100 million we paid this guy for exclusive rights that we can't do anything with?
And why would you give up that 11 million people? I mean, unless the guy, God forbid, went out and killed somebody, then I can say, okay, I get it.
Right.
But if you have 11 million people plus listening to his podcast on a daily basis.
Right.
And then you look at, I mean, why would you? Why? And now, especially now, if this guy don't get 20 million people listening to his podcast, there's something wrong, because Joe Rogan literally has been in the news every day for the past, 2 weeks now at this point?
At least.
And then on the other end of that, they pulled Neil Young's music, and what does XM Sirius Satellite do? They go, hey, let's put a Neil Young channel on, because you can't listen to him on Spotify,
right?
But we'll put him on our. I mean, come on,
exactly.
man.
So, listen, like I said, they're all making money. They're all making money. And the funny thing is like Neil Young, he's complaining about it's the vaccines, right? Misinformation about the vaccines. The thing is people that don't get the vaccines, that's their choice. But they have a problem with people that got the vaccines. People that got the vaccines, and that's their choice, have a problem with people that haven't gotten the vaccines. Right? And then you have people in the middle that may have gotten the first vaccine but not the second. Gotten both vaccines but haven't gotten a booster, because now they're thinking it's one way or the other. You're going to have... That's society. You put more than, one person in a room, you're going to have conflict. You're going to have differing opinions. And I don't know how old Neil Young is, but I'm sure he's older than some of the shoes that I have. He's creating ultimatums. First of all, no one should be doing that, right? That's what bullies do. That's what the bad guy always did in the movies, right?
He's 76 years old, man.
Yeah, okay. Like, you either pay us the $100 million or all the hostages are, we're going to shoot them or something. I mean, it's stupid stuff like that. Like, I don't understand. It's either him or me. Come on. I mean, that just sounds so dumb. Like, what are we, high schoolers? It just doesn't make sense to me. Like,
it doesn't,
pick a forum. Like, everybody deserves, again, things that are important. Like, everybody deserves a decent wage to live. Right. We're not getting guys that are fighting out. Why? How can you? Because it's been so long since they've had to dig in their pocket and only felt their leg. Do you know what I mean? That's what I'm saying. Like, it's important things. Like, we have hunger in this country that we have not figured out a way to solve or get at least the control on. But we're worried about whether or not Neil Young's stuff is on Spotify, but now he has a Sirius XM channel. So how did this negatively affect him? Well, it hasn't, actually.
Yeah, not at all. Not at all. And again, like we said earlier, he's more relevant now than he has been since the 80s.
Sure, and before the end of this, I'm sure that Neil Young will be on Joe Rogan's show. It's Andy Kaufman all over again, right? That's what this is. In some way.
And then Rogan will get 30 million listeners.
Right, you know what I mean? Because it'd be the match of a century. It's just crazy stuff. But again, that point that I keep going back to, it really is about censorship. It's not even necessarily free speech, because everybody has we're doing it. Right? Everybody, especially now, the forums, if you're shut down on one, you could start up another. You could do this, and so on and so forth. The free speech is there, whether you're doing it on air, in a recorded fashion, or you're doing it in your kitchen, or you're walking around. We have it. It's there, okay? You either choose it or you don't. But that's everyone's right here in this country, right? The thing is we have to worry about, when do we start crossing lines and forcing people to push the censorship button? And then that means... then the free speech is in jeopardy. And as artists, our creativity is built on that. You cannot censor the creativity, because once you do that, it's not legit anymore. It's manufactured, and that's my concern, right? The other thing goes back to, again, like we said, these guys, they're not really going to... None of these guys are going to feel the effects of any of this in the way that the little guy would. Right, and that's my concern. Where does that put other people? Does that mean, like, are they going to censor our show? Like I said, Joe Rogan's show, because of the money it makes and the prestige and who he is, in the limelight, it'll weather the storm. But then how they make an example is they go down the line to the people that can't fight back. They can't fight back because they don't have the resources. They don't have the financial backing. They don't have the people championing them because of the investments or whatever. Now we're under a microscope, because YouTube's already done it. They've chopped up people's videos, and you can't do this, you can't do that. You know, this video, I had a video that was, it didn't fall under their guidelines. They didn't pull it. However, you have to be 18, you have to sign in and be 18 or older to view it. And I don't see anything wrong with the video. The footage that was used, the military footage, it was stuff that was broadcasted. It was military broadcast stuff that was on news reels. So
stock footage.
Yeah, it was stock footage. Yeah. So it's, you know, but that ball of what they're looking for, that criteria, is getting smaller and smaller. And that means what they're pooling and what's not allowable or not tolerated is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Remember, on TV, it was the 7 dirty words, right, that you couldn't say? There were 7 words that couldn't be used on regular TV. Well, they've slipped.
George Carlin's 7 dirty words,
And now there's 2022. On regular TV, you're still not hearing that F-bomb, but you're hearing other words that are being thrown in because it's commonplace now. And if it's after 10 o'clock, you can slip in some other words.
I was going to say, because you can watch, I think it's, if you watch FX, like 10 o'clock, we'll throw that F-bomb on.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So there's a now they put it, now it's a 10 o'clock, it's a magic word. There's nothing wrong with it. It's comedy, right? It's comedy.
Right.
Well, to me, it was always comedy. Anytime that you got Pesci saying it or De Niro or, you know, that's, to me, that's comedy. Anyway, you know, a good PG movie back when we were kids always had nudity and at least 4 F-bombs. Right, but there's some PG movies you're like nowadays you're like, how did that pass the censors? You know what I mean? So I don't know.
It's true, man. It's censorship, and that's what bothers me the most. Again, it doesn't matter where we fall on the political side or how you and I feel about boosters and vaccines and COVID, and what it comes down, and Joe Rogan and the music and the musicians, like what it comes down to is censorship in its purest form. And that's just not cool, man. It's just really just not.
It's the creators and the artists' responsibility at all levels, even the ones that have the big payday, to continue to make that accessible, not only for themselves, but for the next generations. And because, like I said once before, like after a while, it becomes a norm and things have changed and a generation has passed. They think it's normal, but then the older generation goes, well, that's not how it was before. But we've been forced to, this is where we're at. And, you know, and our world has changed quite a lot in the last 20 some years. Right? Since 9/11, a lot of things have changed. A lot of things that we could do or couldn't do, or, you know, whatever. And the pandemic changed the world again in a major, you know, like you're talking about worldwide change. Well, 9/11 did that. And this pandemic did it. I mean, there's little things here and there that have kind of trickled down, but, you know, this could be something that could also change. I doubt it. In a sense, I mean, that's my personal feeling. I think after next week, it's not going to be that big of a deal. I mean, because it's that entertainment rivalry type of thing, in my opinion. However, it could spiral out of control and cause that censorship, that microscope, you know, looking under the microscope to all the people that don't have the resources to weather such a storm. That's my consideration. That would be my concern.
You know, and I agree with you. I don't think this is going to last very long. I mean, you know, they always say we're in a 24-hour news cycle. And even though each day, you know, 1 or 2 more artists come out, but if you really kind of look at the caliber of artists, and nothing against them, they're all super talented. They all have names and they've all written great music through the years. But at the end of the day, if it's not going to be a huge name and make a huge impact, it's just going to die out and fade away anyway.
I agree with you. Yeah, I mean, unless you start having like the Metallicas, and now I know, you know, a couple years ago, and we've talked about this in previous episodes, you know, Taylor Swift wouldn't have her stuff on Spotify, but as you had pointed out, her stuff is on Spotify, and it's almost like it's a necessary evil, right? And the artists know it. Bigger artists know that. Yeah. You know what I mean? But again, they're still making more than the average artist.
Yeah.
So you got to weigh it out, I guess. But is it about money? It could be. Is it about misinformation, spreading misinformation or lies, as some of the news? It could be. That's the whole entire internet. Because sometimes, like we're at a state now that we're not exactly sure what we can believe. You have to go on Snopes to find out, is it true? And even that, I mean, who knows? I mean,
Yeah,
you could
yeah,
find
100%.
You could pick a topic and you could find 5 things, pro, 5 things con on it, and it's like, well, I don't know. It's like trying to read reviews, or at Amazon. Like I don't know. Man, let me just buy it. I get Prime so I can send it back. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? And I think that's what they do. They know that. You put 6,000 reviews. Well, one guy loves it, one guy hates it, one guy wouldn't give it to his mother-in-law, but he'll use it. This should be 1 star, but I'm going to tell you why I gave it 2 stars. All right. I'm not even sure what that means. It should be 1, but you're giving it 2 because it helped you. I don't know. It helped jack up your car. I don't know. Stupid stuff. But my point is you're not going to know unless, like you said, you do it yourself. Is it going to work? Isn't going to work? So, censorship, people, stay away from it. Once we start censoring as artists, the creative aspect of what we do will begin to diminish, and we're going to be forced to do other things. We've become too mechanical in terms of how we produce what we do.
100%, man. It's 100%. It's censorship in its purest form, and that's just not. It's not good.
Nope. You got anything else you want to add?
No, man. No, I think we pretty much covered it.
I'm not exactly sure that we may have gave the right scope on the situation, but I think we pieced out what we were more concerned with than Mr. Young and Mr. Rogan's beef with one another, whether they're vaccinated or not, whether they're lying, whether they're not, whether someone's music is there or not. In 2022, whether his music is or isn't on Spotify, if somebody wants to get it, they'll get it. They'll find it. His distribution, they'll find some other. So he's not on Spotify, but he'll be, like you said, be on Amazon. He'll still be on iTunes, Apple Music, Google Music, Zoom, whatever they're called. All this other, Deezer, so on and so forth. So I think he'll do okay.
I'm sure
You'll be all right, Mr. Young. You'll be all right. So you can just keep rocking in the free world, baby. All right. If you like this episode, check out some of our other episodes and seasons. You can join us always at www.thecosmicvoice.com. Step into the Cosmic Verse. You'll never know what you'll find. Thanks so much for listening. This is the Cosmic Voice. Be sure to check us out at thecosmicvoice.com. Like and follow us on Facebook at The Cosmic Voice. You can find The Cosmic Voice everywhere you listen to online podcasts, like Deezer, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, Stitcher, and so many more.
Okay, folks, that will do it for another episode of The Cosmic Voice. Mick and I would like to say thank you very much for tuning in, and we will see you next week.
You're listening to The Cosmic Voice. Music, talk, and nothing but business.